I recently read a timeless book by one of the better-known authors in Western culture, and there's enough information in that book to do 10 of these briefs, but I want to share one thing with you that was particularly helpful for me. The book, of course, was Oh, the Places You Will Go by Dr. Seuss, and I was reading it to my kids a while back, and when we were reading it, we stopped at a particular line that I want to share with you and give a little bit of insight that actually my kids shared with me. So here's from the book. Fame. You'll be famous as famous can be, with the whole wide world watching you win on TV. Except when they don't, because sometimes they won't. I'm afraid that sometimes you'll play lonely games too, games you can't win because you'll play against you. All alone, whether you like it or not, alone will be something you'll be quite a lot. And when you're alone, there's a very good chance you'll meet things that scare you right out of your pants. Now, I was reading this with my kids a while back, and we stopped at this line and had a talk about loneliness with my kids. And which, by the way, loneliness, according to my 7-year-old, is when I send him to bed before he's ready to go to sleep. And he has to lay there, awake, waiting. I thought that's a pretty good definition of loneliness. That's how we feel sometimes when we are alone, waiting, awake. So we talked about that, loneliness and what it means to be lonely. And because I can't shelter my kids from being lonely their entire life, I decided to give them a couple of pointers or a little bit of insight on how to handle the lonely seasons of life. Now, before I do that, I want to say as your chaplain, I pray this is not the season you're in right now, but the reality of the world we live in is that if it's not now, at some point it's going to be. And so the next time you enter into a lonely season, I would encourage you to think of it in terms of these two perspectives. The first thing is that loneliness is a life season. It's not a life sentence. Differentiating the two can make a world of difference. Meaning at some point, that season, as seasons do, it'll come to an end and it will be replaced by another season. And to prove that, I would just encourage you to look back on the season of your life in the rearview mirror that you weren't very fond of, whether it was a lonely season, a bad season, an angry season, whatever it was. At some point, that season came to an end and now you're in a different season of life now. Well, the same is true of our lonely seasons. Now, they never pass as quickly as we want them to, but they do pass. It's not a dead-end road. It's just a road that's going to lead you to another road. And then it'll be over and you'll be in a new season. Which brings me to the second thing I want to encourage you with. When you get to that new season of life, and the lonely one is in the rearview mirror, you're going to emerge in that new season with a story to tell. I would encourage you now to ask yourself seriously, how do I want to tell this story? How do I want to say I navigated through this lonely season of life? Now, without ever having met you, my assumption is what you don't want your story to be is, well, I made a series of bad decisions, drank myself into the carpet, turned an awful situation into an even awfuler situation. Like, that's not what you want your story to be. My assumption is what you want your story to be is, yeah, that was a really awful season. Actually, then it got worse. But here I am, still vertical. Here's how I got through that season. But that stuff doesn't happen on accident. If you want that to be your story, you have to be deliberate about crafting your life in a very intentional way. To that, I'll close with this. As your chaplain, I want you to know you are not unique. You are not special. And that's actually really, really good news. Because we often make a bad situation worse with the assumption nobody could possibly understand what I'm going through. This situation is so uniquely bad, nobody's ever encountered it before, and as a result, nobody can help me. Well, that's just not true. None of us are that unique. But we often isolate ourselves by assuming, well, nobody has ever thought the things that I'm thinking, and I don't know what they would think about me if I shared the things I'm thinking with all these people. They would think really bad things about me. When the reality is, they're thinking the same things you're thinking. So don't make a situation worse by assuming nobody else has gone through or will go through what you're going through now. At the end of the day, at the beginning of the day, we're all humans and we're in this together. Thanks.